everyone, I am Chris. This is Simply Classic, and today we're going to do a hack video. Now, sometimes bag hacks are done because we like the style of a bag, and there's a pattern out there that has a similar style with maybe just a few changes, and we're able to do something to change up the pattern to make it look like our inspiration piece. But sometimes hacks are done based on the colors of a bag and the feel of the bag, and that's essentially what today's hack is on. So here's a photo of the bag that we're going to hack today, and Cheryl sent this to me. She's a tester of mine, and she's like, look at this bag, it's python. And if any of you know anything about python, it is super expensive. So this bag is a very simple bag. There's not a whole lot of quote-unquote style to it. The python speaks for itself, right? The material is what is the show of the bag. So we actually have some fabric, some faux leather, of course, that's very similar to these colors. We have it in a color similar to this, and we also have like a red and pink color. So I'm going to link that below, and you'll see me work with the blue color today. And this bag is basically the Burcham. So you can see from this photo that the height and the length of the bag is the same. It's 13 3/4 inches, and then the depth is 5.5. Well, the Burcham is 7.5 and 7.5, and then the width is 3. So really, it's like the Burcham on steroids. Okay. The handles in this inspiration piece are very unique, and I kind of toyed around with what we could use to keep that sturdy square structure, and honestly, I really couldn't come up with anything. I think that if you use Decaville Heavy, even if you use 2 layers or Peltex, eventually as you continue to grab that handle, it's just going to end up swishing in your hand. So we're just going to do regular hidden strap connectors with a faux rolled handle. And I've done that in other videos. I think the Roseanne is the one that we did it in, but we'll do it again today. And then the crossbody straps in this bag, or those connectors, are actually sewn into the sides. So we'll do that as well. You know, the Burcham has got kind of that off-center strap connector that a lot of you have come up with different hacks and different ways to put that on, which is fantastic. I love it. You've posted on the Facebook group. But the one thing that I want to talk to you about is the top. If you look here at this photo, the top of the bag, you see how it's slightly curved? So I'm going to show you how to get that curve. And you're going to be able to do it one of 2 ways. One is using a ruler that most of us probably have in our workroom. The other one is freehand. And to be honest with you, when I did the freehand versus the ruler, it came out like the same when I did it and took my measurements. So again, I'll tell you all about that. I'll tell you exactly how much to add to these pieces. The bottom of this inspiration bag is a separate piece. The Burcham is not. You actually, on the Burcham, have a boxed corner, so we're just going to keep it that. We're going to keep that all the same. So let's go over the pattern changes. And of course, before I say that, the Burcham is all cut for measurement, so I'm just going to be giving you how much to add to each piece. We'll put it up on the screen so you have a chance to copy it down. So let's get sewing. Okay, so let's go over pattern pieces and measurement changes. So to our main pattern pieces, which is our front and our back, this is how big they are. They're really big. This is a big bag. And what I did was to the width of these pieces, so you're going to start with the measurements in the Burcham, and then to the width, I added 8 3/4 inches, so 8.75 inches. And then to the height, I added 7.5 inches. So we're going to throw that up on the screen real quick. 8.75 to the width, and 7.5 or 7.5 to the height. The other thing you're going to do different is our little squares down here where we box our corners. We are going to cut out squares that are 2 3/4 inches. So 2.75 inches in and 2.75 inches down. That's going to give us our 5.5 inch width. I also put my stabilizer on the back, which is Decoville Light. And to the stabilizer, I added 8.75 to the width, and I added 6.5 to the height of the stabilizer. So if you've made the Burcham, you know that we don't put any stabilizer down here yet. We're going to wait and do that once we sew our bottoms together. Okay, so 8.75 to the width, 6.5 to the height. To the upper lining pieces, and I'll go over how to get this curve here in just a minute. To the upper lining pieces, we're going to add 8.75 to the width. Okay, so from here to here is 8.75 more, and 2 inches to the height. And to the upper stabilizer piece, we're going to add 8.75 to the width, and the same thing, 2 to the height. You're going to fuse that stabilizer on the back. And that's Decoville Light. Okay, to the zipper plackets, we are going to add 6 inches to the width and 1 1/4 inches to the height. So 6 inches to the width, 1 1/4 to the height. To the bottom stabilizer piece, we're going to add 6.5 to the width and 2.5 to the height. So 6.5, 2.5. Okay, I cut my handles for my faux rolled edge or rolled handles 20 inches long, and they are 2 inches wide. Okay, so 2 inches by 20. I have a crossbody strap, just the width of the faux, that I will do. I have strap connector pieces, and I cut these 8 inches by 2 inches. We're going to essentially have 2 for the front, 2 for the back, and then 1 on each side. And I cut 2 of these because we're going to end up cutting it up into the sections we need for the bag. I'm going to do hidden strap connectors. I like the way they look. They're nice and neat. So we'll cut it up once we sew it. Okay. The lining pieces, you can do what you want for the lining. I ended up cutting my zipper overlay and my zipper pockets a little bit larger. So the zipper overlay is 12 inches long, still 2 inches deep, and then I have a 1/2 inch box cut out of the middle. The zipper pockets are 12 inches long, and the width is 8 inches. This bag can handle a really big zipper pocket, so I have 2 zipper pocket pieces. For my slip pocket, I cut a piece that was 12 by 12, and then I cut an accent piece to go on the top. And then of course I have a key fob that I cut, and I'm going to end up putting the lining together before we do the video, and then that way you don't have to sit through that. You've seen me do linings 100 times before, and your lining you can customize however you want. So I also have lining pieces for my zipper placket, and I did the same width and height to that. So that's going to be the zipper placket 6 inches to the width, so from side to side, and 1 1/4 inches to the height, the same as the main pieces. Okay, for the lining, so I have 2 lining pieces. Again, my little squares at the bottom are 2 3/4 by 2 3/4. And to my lining, I added 8.75 to the width, and then to the height, I only added 5.5, so 5.5. That's all the changes. Now let's go over this curve. So on your upper lining and on your main part of your bag, if you like that curve that you see in the inspiration bag and you want to copy that, here's what you're going to do. You're going to find the center of your piece. You're going to mark from the center top down 1.5 inches. On the side, you're going to mark in 1.5 inches. On this side, you're going to mark in 1.5 inches. So now you have 3 marks on the back of your bag. 1.5 inches in from each side and 1.5 inches down from the center. Now, most of you have a French curve in your arsenal of rulers. If you've ever made garments, you have one. And this is what a French curve looks like. Okay. So what I did is I just took the French curve and I laid it down on the top as far down as the dots were. So I started, here, let me see if I can hold this and show you at the same time. I put one edge of the curve on this line, one edge of the curve on this line, and laid it down. I'm going to move the camera so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so here's my pattern piece. I've got 1.5 inches, and then I had 1.5 inches down here in the center. I took my ruler and I just literally laid it right on those 1.5 inch dots. So right against the 1.5 inches on each side, and then the 1.5 inches down. And I just used my rotary cutter and cut. Now, on one piece, I used this ruler. On the other piece, I literally just kind of free-handed a curve over and up. And then I folded this in half to make sure it was the same on both sides and cut. And it ended up being like the same. If you follow the measurements, the 1.5 inches and the 1.5 inches, it will be. Now, it really does not matter what your curve is here at the top. That's a style option. You can make it whatever you want. Just make sure that both sides of the bag have the same curve and that your upper lining pieces match that curve. So once you get one curve actually cut out, use that as your guide for the other curves so that everything matches up. Okay, if you want the curve. If not, leave the curve out. It's not a problem. Again, that's a design choice, not a necessity. Okay, so we are going to get started stitching this bag. Okay, let's do our strap connectors first. So I went ahead and drew a line down the center, put some double-sided tape on the back. I'm just going to peel the backing off the tape, and we are going to fold our edges into the center. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, we're going to do some hidden strap connectors on the front of the bag, and then on the sides for the crossbody strap, we're just going to sew them into the top seam. So I'm just cut about 8 inches here, 2 pieces. They're 2 by 8. And then we will, once we have it stitched, we'll cut the sizes we need for the connectors. So as you see here, I made sure to cut them out of the same part of the faux so they were the same color. And now we're just going to top stitch them. Have them completed. So from here I'm going to cut 3-inch sections. It doesn't have to be exact, just as long as they are roughly 3 inches. And let's see, a couple more. And I'll set this aside for the side straps. I'm going to take this one, fold it in half, and this is what will be for our crossbody. So I'm going to set those aside for just a minute. And okay, from here we want to go ahead and mark where we're going to put our straps. So I'm going to find the center of the main panel, and I'm going to make these marks on the back so that they're easy to see. The original pattern does not have any straps here. It's a crossbody. So for this, I'm going to measure down 2 inches from the top, and it's this top bottom curve, like where it curves in, if you decided to do the curve. So I'm just going to place my ruler and draw a line. Then from that center, I'm going to go over 3 inches. I'm going to draw another line. To the right, and then from the center 3 inches, and then to the left. So what I want to do, and I'm even going to mark, basically right where these points are is where the strap is going to start. And then we're going to go over an inch towards the side. So I want to measure that because I don't want to go any further. I could actually go a little bit less, and that's what I'm going to do. I don't want to go too far and make it big, because if you make it too big, you can't obviously make it smaller. So it's better to be a little bit cautious here. So I'm going to take a small cutting board here and my ruler so that I can make sure my lines are straight when I cut them. And I'll line this up. Put my point in at this one mark here where I'm starting, and I'll drag it over to the other. And then do the same thing on this one. All right. So now I have 2 holes. One here, I have one here. So I'm going to take one of my strap connectors and right sides together. So the right side of the strap with the right side of the bag, I'm going to slip this in. And I'm going to make sure I have about 1 inch on the back. Which I do. I'm going to do the same thing with the other strap connector. Make sure I have about 1 inch, which I do. So from here, we're going to stitch on the strap connector across. You don't want to overstitch because you don't want to see it on your bag. And you don't want to stitch above because then you're not going to be able to get the other side of your strap connector in. So you're going to do on the strap connector itself, and you're just going to do a couple stitches back and forth on each one. So let me show you in this camera. You can see here, we're going to stitch on the connector from this point to this point. And I'll show you when I'm done. Oh. It just slid out. Let me make sure. Get it back in. Okay, so here's what it looks like. See, I did not overstitch. Just try to stay between my stitch line. And then on the back, I'll show you in this camera, you can see where I stitched. Okay, we do the same thing for the other one. Okay, so now I have my strap connectors on. Before we go any further, I'm going to put the strap connectors on the other side. We're going to have to do our rolled handles because the handles actually get stitched to the ring, and then we'll finish these off. Okay, next we need to do the handles. So I drew a line down the center, and I'm going to put some double-sided tape down the center of both. And this is 1/2 inch double-sided tape. I'm going all the way from end to end. Now, it's been a while since I've done these. I call them faux rolled handles because there's no core in here. we're just going to fold the fabric a couple of times to kind of make it feel like a core. So the first thing that I need to do is to cut the end, each end. So I'm going to cut about 1/4 inch from the side and go up a couple inches and then just cut that off. And do that on both sides. And I'm going to make them about even. And this does not have to be perfect, but this is what I have. So I'm going to do that on both sides. So from here, peel the backing off your tape and go ahead and fold the center in. And you're going to fold it just shy of the line like normal. And when you get to this section right here, where it's shorter, you're going to go all the way to the center with that edge. When you do it, you're going to end up somewhere along this line with a little bubble of faux there because you're asking the fabric to curve in. So I usually just stick my scissors in there, make a little clip wherever that bubble is, and then just push it down. So do the same thing on this side, all the way down, and then when I get to the end, bring that short edge all the way in, figure out where my little bubble is, cut it, and lay it flat. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with the other side. Fold it in. And a little bit more. Okay, so this is what I have. I have these two kind of funky looking edges. Mark 3 inches from the edge. So from this short edge, I'm going to mark 3 inches up on each piece. And I see here I have an extra little piece of faux that's kind of wanting to hang out. I'm just going to cut that off. Get it out of my way. All right. So now we're going to put a ring on, and we're going to take the ring right up to our mark, our 3-inch mark. And I'm going to fold this over. I'm going to put a little bit of tape on that to hold it. If I can find the edge of my tape, there it is. So let me go ahead and put the tape here. I'll put some here. Let's peel the backing off this tape and fold this over. So again, the 3-inch line is where the ring is going. I'm just going to fold that up. Do the same thing on the other side. Stick the ring on. And fold that up. So now this is what we have. So from here, we're going to take the two ends and fold them together. So you have some thickness here where we've got several layers, but you should be okay getting through it. But if you don't think you're going to be, then obviously just do a regular handle here. And the main thing is I just want to make sure I go up far enough that I capture that edge in there. And I can see that looks about even. I'm going to start sewing about 2 inches from the ring. Okay. Be about 2 inches. So if you want to mark that, you can, just so that you know on each side about where to start and stop. I'm going to put a little line here. And a little line here. So now we're just going to stitch this together. So I'm going to start right there at my line. Because this is a printed fabric, it's going to be hard to see a back stitch, so I am going to do about 1 little, maybe 2 back stitches here. Just enough to hold it. And then we're going to go on down. I'm going to stitch my other line and do the same thing, just a couple little back stitches. And then just like that, we have a faux rolled handle. So from here, I want to take my main panel and we want to go ahead and put these on. So make sure that you're putting them on so that the seam side of your handle is facing up. Put this in. Put it through our slit, pull it kind of tight. Okay, so I'm pulling it so that it's all the way up. I don't have any slack here. It's all the way up, as far as it can go. And then I'm just going to fold this over and I'm going to stitch these together. So I'm going to stitch here and I'm going to stitch here. And it doesn't matter if your ends are not actually connecting. So you see on this one, my ends are different sizes. I'm just going to cut that off. That's not a problem. Nobody's going to see that. And then the last thing that I want to do is, as I flip these up, I'm going to make sure they lay nice and flat, and then I'm going to put a rivet right here on each one just to give it a little extra stability. I'm also going to put a small rivet right here on my rolled handle just so that it kind of blends it all together. So I'm going to measure for my rivet on this part about 1/2 inch down and centered. So 1/2 inch from the seam itself down and centered. And then on my handle, I'm going to actually go up. It's going to be about 1 inch. So 1 inch and centered. All right. I'm going to go ahead and punch my holes, set my rivets, and then do the same thing for the other side, and then the handles will be in. Okay, so now both of these are completed. The handles are on. So we are going to flip them right sides together, and we're going to go ahead and clip the bottom. stitch. And the seam allowances are the same for this as they are in the pattern. Okay, to get this to lay flat, we're going to open the seam allowance and top stitch. So I'm going to turn this over and just do a little finger press here. Now I'm going to top stitch on each side. Okay, so everything's nice and top stitched, and you can see because I fussy cutted, the bag is matching up here. Okay, so you're going to flip this over and you're going to take your piece of Decoville Heavy, and this should fit right in the center of your two pieces of Decoville Light with just a tiny little bit to spare. You're going to center it right to left. And that tiny little bit to spare is going to allow this to fold up and give you a nice crisp edge. So go ahead and go to your iron or your heat press and press this on. So my Decoville Heavy is on, and I decided I want feet on this bag because the bag is so large. So what I did was from the edge of the Decoville Heavy, I measured over 1 inch, drew a line, came to this side, did the same thing, and then on each side as well. And where the lines intersect is where I'm going to put feet. Now, because this is a fairly large bottom, I also want feet in the middle. But I don't want to put a foot right slap dab in the middle because it'll tear our seam and then our bag will fall apart. So I'm actually going to put 6 feet on this bag. I drew a line down the center, so at that each intersection point in the middle, I'm also going to add a foot. So go ahead and add your feet, and then we'll continue. Okay, I have my feet on. And I'm going to add a piece of foam to the bottom. This is just a little extra something I like to do. So I'm going to put some double-sided tape over these feet to kind of hold them down, hold them in place. This is 1 inch double-sided tape that I get from Wawack. And then from here, I'm just going to peel the backing off this tape. And the foam that I cut was the same size as the Decoville Heavy. So I'm just going to lay this on top. And now when you have your bag and you're using it, you won't be able to feel the feet at the bottom. You won't be able to feel the hardware. So I'm going to stitch this on, and at this point we have a lot of bag, so all I'm going to do is stitch all the way around. You are going to see a stitch on the right side, obviously, but it's just going to be a nice frame to this bottom. So once I'm through with that, I'll show you and we'll move on. So I have the foam all sewed on. You can see here in the back, it's nice and sewn, and then in the front, you just see a line, just kind of an outline there, and it just gives it a nice extra little touch. So from here, we're going to sew the sides, right side together. So I'm going to go ahead and clip those. got a lot of bag here, so just smush it down if you need to, get it to where it needs to be. I'm going to go ahead and clip the other side while I'm here, and we'll stitch. Okay, so from here we need to box our corners. And to do that, you're just going to lay this flat here. See, it kind of wants to do it automatically. You're going to take the seam and you're going to match the seam, side seam here up with the bottom seam. So go ahead and open the seam up. And if you'd like, you can actually put a little bit of double-sided tape down here to hold your seams open. And that way they'll be open at the top, open at the bottom, and they won't poke the sides out so much. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. And when I do, I'll do the first one here for you so you can see. I usually just take the tape and put it right up against the stitch line. Okay, just like that. And peel the backing off the tape. And then I'm just going to open this seam and try to lay as flat as I can. So I'm just going to kind of use my fingers to open it up. You can see here how it's laying down. And then when I do the same thing with this side, you'll see that seam's going to stay open. So I'm going to tape the rest of my sides first, and then we'll come back and box the corners. Okay, so the sides are taped. Here's what it looks like. See how it lays nice and flat once it's done? And then these corners here almost box themselves. You just want to match up those seams, the side seam with the bottom seam, and we're going to clip. We're going to do the same thing for the other side. Okay, and then we're going to stitch. Now typically when I stitch with the bag facing up when I do these side seams. Just take the bag, kind of smush it down this way, and then you can stitch right across. Now you do want to cut these seams back to about anywhere between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch. And then we will turn the bag. Take a look. All right, everything looks really good. So as I mentioned earlier, I went ahead and did my lining. The lining is done just like the Burcham, and I'm gonna link a copy of that video down below so that you can go back and take a little refresher on that if you need it. The only thing I'm gonna caution you about is because the zipper placket is wider, you want to make sure you put your interior pockets down far enough so that the overlay here doesn't cover those pockets, okay? So we increased the width of this, and just make sure, again, you're going to need to put your pockets down probably a little bit lower than what you think, all right? So, and I didn't, I'm going to tell you, I ended up putting my pockets too high. So when I sewed my upper lining to my zipper placket, instead of stitching the zipper placket down in top stitching, I put it up and top stitched. So now what's going to happen is that the zipper placket's not going to fall down into the bag and cover those pockets, okay? So all is not lost with the bag. It just, if you want the zipper placket coming up and you want more room in your bag, you're going to top stitch with the zipper placket up. If you want the zipper placket to fall down into your bag, then you will put this zipper placket down, and when you top stitch the upper lining, you're just going to top stitch on top of the zipper placket. Make sense? All right, so from here, we're going to go ahead and put our bag together. So I am going to just slide the lining in. Make sure your handles are down inside and your zipper plackets are down inside. You don't want to stitch either one of those by accident. I'm going to start at the side seams and clip. Okay, now before we stitch, we need to make sure we put our side connectors on for our crossbody strap. So I'm going to get these last two side connector pieces, and I'm going to stick with O-rings for this. I think that it would be nice to have everything consistent. So I'm just going to slide the connector on, and I'm just going to baste the ends closed. Do the same thing with this one. And we want to slip them inside on the straight edge here on the side seam. So go ahead and make sure your connector's facing down. You're going to put it inside and center it right here on this seam. Now, I usually like to have about, let's see, I'm going to have about it's about 1/4 of an inch sticking up, because I usually don't want to just align the seams. I want to give this a little bit of extra because it's going to have some extra weight. Obviously, this is a big bag. So the end of the connector sticking out about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, we slide the other one on the other side. And you can, instead of doing it this way, you could certainly do the connector the same way you do the Burcham, where you rivet it on after the bag's put together. It's whatever you prefer. This is just another way to do it. And I'm just basically copying the inspiration bag here. So we're going to go ahead and stitch this on. I'm going to turn the bag as I come to my side. Turn again. And just kind of keep rolling the bag with you as you sew. All right, we'll stitch across the side. Take one more stitch this way. All right, and then so now let's make some relief cuts. Don't cut off your 1/4 inch of your strap connector here, but you do want to cut off these corners on your top here. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of cut so that those corners are cut off. The more we can cut off there, the better, okay? I'll do the same thing on the other side. And then I am going to make some relief cuts because I have a slight curve here. You may or may not have done the curve. If it's just a straight stitch, then, or straight top, you don't have to worry about doing it. But since I do have that slight curve, I want to make sure that the bag lays nice and flat. So a lot of times I cut triangles in. This isn't a really sharp curve. I might do a few, but it doesn't have to be a lot of them. Here, let's see. And then once I do my triangles, I usually cut the seam allowance back as well. Probably to right about there. Maybe one more. And then I'll probably just put a couple of little cuts in here, just in case. You can't put too many. And then I am just going to trim this back. And I always like to put my triangles in first. It helps to do that because then you have a little base of the triangles left. It's harder to do it once you've cut the seam allowance back. All right, get rid of your mess. And that's what we have. So I'm going to do the same thing on this other side, and then we'll turn the bag. All right, everything's cut and ready to go, so let's pull the bag out. When I did my lining, I did leave my bottom open. And also left my zipper pocket open. So before I close the bag, I am going to top stitch. So I'm going to pull all these seams out, make sure everything looks good. Put the lining inside of the bag. And probably the biggest challenge with this bag is just that there's a lot of fabric because it's such a big bag. Okay, and then once that's inside, I'm going to go ahead and clip around the top. Alright, so now that everything's clipped, we're going to top stitch. And this bag is definitely big enough that you can top stitch on your regular flatbed machine. So I'm going to start at the side. And right here where you've got your clip, you may want to protect your fabric a little bit because you might have, if you have a walking foot machine, you might have a situation with the foot trying to tear up your faux. So just stick something underneath there to make sure that does not happen. And then once again, I'm going to put something underneath here so I don't mess my project up. And that definitely grabbed, I felt that. So it was good I did that. So if you have a cylinder arm machine, obviously this would be easier, but I did want to do it on this machine so you can see you don't have to have that to make this bag. The bigger the bag, the easier it is to top stitch on a flatbed machine. And then I'm going to do just a couple of little back stitches here. Just to hold it in place. And we are done with that part. Okay, so all that looks great. So from here we are going to open up our zipper pocket and pull the lining out, the pocket lining. Then we're going to reach in the pocket lining and pull the bottom of the bag out of the pocket. So grab it here and pull it out. Okay, so there's the bottom. We're going to clip the bottom edge first, all the way down. Then we will box the corners. Alright, so we'll go ahead and stitch that. I am going to trim this seam allowance back. It's about 1/8 of an inch. And then when we box the corners, I'm going to nest the seams. So what that means is that my side seam is going to go in that direction and my bottom seam is going to go in that direction. And I'm just going to match up where they meet. And then they're going to go, they're little, so they're going to go in opposite directions. That's called nesting the seam. So the only thing you want to make sure of is when you box this side, that bottom seam is going in the same direction as over here. So since it's going in that direction over here, I'm going to make sure it goes in that direction on this side as well. And put my side seam in the other. All right, let's stitch these. I'm going to make sure my seam allowances stay where they should. And then I'm going to trim it back. And then repeat. Trim that back, and then we will put it inside the bag. Make sure it all looks good. Make sure it fits well, which it does. See there how nice it fits? So we're going to take the pocket now, and we're just going to fold it under about in between 1/4 and 1/2 inch, and we'll clip it. And we will be done. So in these hack videos, I do try to concentrate more on showing you how to do the hack than some of the sewing, which is why the lining, some of the repetitive stuff is done ahead of time. The crossbody strap is done, little things like that. And instead we concentrate on the measurements for the hack and the pattern piece changes for the hack, and then any sewing of the exterior typically. You can always refer back to the original videos of the bag, like in this case the Burcham, so that you can see how to do the lining. Okay, so here everything's clipped. We're going to go ahead and stitch it. And I usually try to use just a scant 1/8 of an inch. We'll stick the pocket in and poke the corners down real good. Zip that up. So from here I am going to put my zipper pull on this top zipper placket and put a little zipper end, and then we'll take a look at the bag. So here's the completed bag. We have handles, shorter handles, just like the inspiration bag. We have a crossbody strap. Of course, we can wear it as a crossbody. The shape is similar because I cut the angle at the top, which again you do not need to do. You can have it straight, that would not be a problem. The inside, I put a slip pocket on one side, a zipper pocket on the other, and then of course the key fob. So I hope you enjoyed the video. We're going to call this the Python bag hack. So please subscribe if you like this video, if you want to see more of them. It'll just keep you informed as to when new videos are posted. Give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, hit that like button, and until next time, happy sewing.